The joint savings account had always been my idea. My father's name, my money, one shared purpose, his heart surgery, scheduled for March 14th. The balance that morning read 0. I sat at my kitchen table, phone in hand, the notification blinking like it was waiting for me to react. I didn't cry. I didn't call my brother screaming. I just set the phone face down, poured my coffee, and thought, he has no idea what he just started. My family lives in a modest ranch house outside of Columbus, Ohio. Beige siding, a cracked driveway my father always meant to repave, a mailbox that lists slightly to the left no matter how many times someone straightens it. From the outside, we look like every other family on Clearwater Drive. Inside, we ran on a system I never agreed to, but somehow always enforced. Dad worked the floor at an auto plant until his heart said otherwise. Mom cleaned houses 3 days a week until her knees gave out, and I was the one who made sure the gaps got filled. My brother Derek is 24, 3 years younger than me, and in some ways about 15 years behind. He's not a bad person, not the kind you'd cross the street to avoid. He's charming in that easy, untested way. The kind of charm that works perfectly as long as nothing is ever actually required of him. Growing up, Derek was funny and quick and everyone's favorite at the dinner table. Teachers liked him, coaches pulled for him. Our parents looked at him the way people look at something fragile and luminous, like if they held on too tight he might shatter. I was not that. I was the one who got a job at 16 because I wanted a laptop and my parents said money was tight. I was the one who packed my own lunch through high school, filed my own FAFSA, drove myself to college orientation in a 10-year-old Civic with a busted AC. I didn't resent it. Not exactly. It just became the architecture of how I understood myself. You want something, you build it yourself. Derek understood himself differently. He understood that wanting something was usually enough. By the time our father's heart condition became serious, I had been working as a hospital administrator in Cincinnati for 4 years. Steady salary, benefits, a small apartment I was genuinely proud of. When the cardiologist told us Dad needed a valve repair and that the timing was critical, I didn't hesitate. The surgery cost after insurance was going to run close to $19,000. My parents had $8,000. I had the rest. I opened a joint account with my father, deposited $11,200 of my own savings, and told him we'd cover the gap together. The surgery was scheduled. The deposit was confirmed. Everything was arranged. I told Derek because he was family, because I believed in the way you believe things about people you grew up with, that knowing would be enough. He nodded seriously at the kitchen table. He said, "That's really good of you, Meg." I believed him. I deeved him. I drove back to Cincinnati on a Sunday. I had a conference Monday through Wednesday in Chicago, the kind you can't reschedule. I texted my father before I boarded, "Everything's set, I'll be back Thursday. Surgery is 2 weeks out." He sent back a thumbs up and a heart. My mother sent 3. I landed at O'Hare on Monday afternoon and checked into my hotel. The conference was the usual mix of useful and tedious. Wednesday evening, I was packing my bag when my phone buzzed with a bank notification. Transaction alert. Joint account ending in 4417. Withdrawal $11,200 and read it twice. Then I sat down on the edge of the hotel bed and read it a third time. The room was very quiet. Outside, Chicago traffic hummed 16 floors below. I opened the account app. Balance, $0. Available funds, $0. Pending transactions, none. I did not cry. I did not call anyone. I sat there for about 4 minutes, very still, doing the math in my head. Not the financial math, I already knew that, but the other kind. The math of access. The math of who knew that account existed and how to get into it. I had added Derek to the emergency contact list on the account because my father had asked me to in case something happened while I was traveling. Derek had the routing number. He had been in the room when I set it up. I opened Instagram. Derek and I follow each other, but we're not close on social media. I scrolled back 2 days. Tuesday afternoon, a photo of him leaning against the hood of a silver Dodge Charger. Sunglasses on, caption reading, "Pulled the trigger finally." No more excuses. 47 likes. 3 comments calling him a legend. I screenshotted it. I screenshotted the bank notification. I put my phone in my bag, finished packing, and went down to the hotel bar and ordered a glass of water and sat with it for a long time. Here's what I knew about my brother. He was not malicious in the calculated way. He was malicious in the softer, more dangerous way. The way of someone who has never genuinely faced a consequence, who has built a worldview in which the people who love him will absorb whatever he breaks. He didn't steal from me because he hated me. He stole from me because somewhere in the architecture of how he understood the world, he believed I would handle it. He believed I always handled it. And in fairness to him, I always had. I flew home Thursday morning. I didn't go to my parents' house first. I went to the dealership, Riverside Motors on Henderson Road, the kind of place with flags out front and salespeople who meet you in the parking lot. I walked in and asked to speak to whoever processed a sale on a Dodge Charger 2 days prior. The salesperson, a young guy named Brad, pulled up the record after I explained I was the account holder whose funds had been used for the down payment. He looked uncomfortable. I told him I wasn't there to cause a scene. I just needed to understand the terms of the transaction. Down payment $9,000. Financing on the remainder. Signed by Derek Allen Calloway. He used $9,000 of the $11,200. The remaining $2,200 had been withdrawn in cash from an ATM. I had the transaction records on my phone. I thanked Brad and left. Then I drove to my parents' house. My mother was in the kitchen when I came in, and she read my face immediately the way mothers do. She said, "What happened?" I sat down and told her. I watched her process it in stages, confusion, then a furrowing, then a slow and terrible understanding. She didn't speak for almost a full minute. Then she said, "He didn't." I showed her the screenshot. She got up and called my father in from the living room. I watched her show him. I watched his face go from mild curiosity to something I'd never seen on him before, a kind of stillness that was worse than anger. He set the phone down carefully. He said, "Where is he?" Derek was at his friend's apartment across town. My father called him and said, "Come home, nothing else." 30 minutes later, Derek's new car pulled into the driveway. He walked in already defensive, the way people are when they know they've done something but haven't been caught in specific words yet. He looked at me and then quickly away. He said, "Hey, when'd you get back?" "Sit down," my father said. Derek sat. My father is not a loud man. He never has been. His version of serious is quieter than most people's version of calm, and the room responded to it. He put his phone on the table with the screenshot facing up and said, "Explain this to me." Derek looked at it. I watched the calculation move across his face. How much do they know? What can I minimize? Is there a version of this I can walk back from? He said, "I was going to replace it. I have a payment plan figured out. I can put it back in 2 months, maybe 6 weeks if I pick up extra shifts." "The surgery is in 12 days, my father said. "I know, but Meg can cover it. She has savings. She can float it and I'll pay her back. I already have the math. You used emergency medical funds," my mother said. Her voice was even and quiet, and it landed harder than a shout. "You knew what that money was for. You knew your father's surgery date. I was going to put it back. The account was set up for one reason," I said. I hadn't spoken yet, and Derek's eyes moved to me cautiously. There was no ambiguity about it. You knew exactly what you were taking. He tried another angle. "I've been struggling, okay? I needed a car for work. I couldn't keep bumming rides. I was going to tell you, you posted a photo of it on Instagram before the bank sent me the notification," I said. Silence. My father looked at him for a long time. Then he said, "Here's what's going to happen. Today you're going to call Riverside Motors and tell them you need to return the vehicle. Whatever fees apply, you'll cover from your own money. You're going to find another way to get to work." Derek stared at him. "You're serious? I'm also going to tell you that I will not be asking your sister to replace what you took. Whatever the gap is, we'll find another way. We'll talk to the billing office, we'll set up a payment plan with the hospital, we'll look at every option. But I'm not going to let her bail you out of this. Not this time." My mother nodded once. Derek looked at me. And I saw it, the flicker, the old reliable hope that I would step in. That I would say, "It's okay, I've got it, don't worry, I'll cover it." I had said that so many times it had become the expected ending to every story. I was the resolution. I was always the resolution. I looked back at him and I didn't say anything. He called Riverside Motors from our kitchen table, the three of us sitting there while he did it. He had to ask for the return policy. He had to explain that he needed to unwind the purchase. The salesperson transferred him twice. There was a restocking fee of $850 that the dealership would not waive. By the time he hung up, Derek looked like something had been removed from him. Not dramatically, not in a Hollywood way, just quietly depleted. Like the version of himself that always expected to be caught before hitting the ground had finally been allowed to land. He put the phone down. He said, "The car goes back Saturday. I lose the fee." My father nodded. "Where am I supposed to get $850? "That," my father said, "is your problem to solve." Derek slept at home that night. I drove back to my apartment and sat in my car in the parking garage for a while before going upstairs. I didn't feel triumphant. I want to be clear about that because I think people expect that moment to feel like winning. It didn't. It felt like watching someone take their first step on a broken leg. Necessary. Painful to witness. Real in a way that the previous 24 years had never quite been. The $9,000 was gone from the dealership transaction. The $2,200 from the ATM Derek produced in cash from his apartment over the next 2 days. I never asked where it came from and he didn't explain. My father's billing advocate at the hospital worked out a structured payment arrangement for the remaining shortfall, a process that took 4 phone calls and most of a Friday, but ultimately landed on workable terms. The surgery happened on March 14th, as scheduled. I sat in the waiting room for 6 hours with my mother. Derek came at hour 3. He sat on the other side of the room from me and didn't try to make conversation, and I respected that more than I would have respected an apology. At hour 5, he brought my mother a coffee from the machine down the hall, the kind that comes in a paper cup and tastes like nothing, and she took it and held it in both hands, and didn't say thank you, but didn't need to. The surgery went well. My father came out of recovery talking about whether there was anything to eat. 2 weeks later, Derek started working double shifts at the warehouse, where he'd been part-time for the past year. He picked up a second gig doing weekend deliveries. He didn't announce it. My mother mentioned it to me on the phone in the way she mentions things she's quietly proud of, sideways, embedded in a longer sentence about something else. He sent me a Venmo payment of $300 with a memo line that just said first installment. No emoji, no explanation. I accepted it and said nothing back. The following month, it was $350. The month after that, $400. I stopped expecting it to stop. We had one real conversation about it. In April, in my parents' backyard while my father was inside napping and my mother was pulling weeds along the fence. Derek came and sat in the other lawn chair and was quiet for a while. Then he said, "I keep trying to figure out how I convinced myself it was okay." I said, "I think you convinced yourself I'd fix it." He was quiet for a moment. "You always did." "I know." "That's not an excuse." "I know that too." He leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, looking at the grass. He said, "I think I knew, on some level, that you'd let me fall this time. I think that's why I posted the photo that fast. Like if I made it real enough, public enough, you couldn't take it back." I thought about that for a long time after. There's something in it, the way people who've always been caught will sometimes rush toward visibility the moment they sense the net is gone. Like proof that they did it is the only way to make it feel real before it gets undone. "The photo is still up," I said. He nodded. "I know. I'm leaving it there." I looked at him. "Why?" "Reminder," he said simply. My father's follow-up in May showed the repair holding well. The cardiologist called it a textbook recovery. My mother made a dinner to celebrate, the real kind, with the good plates she keeps in the back of the cabinet, and Derek brought flowers that I'm fairly certain he paid for himself because he mentioned the price unprompted and then looked embarrassed that he'd mentioned it. After dinner, he helped my mother clear the table without being asked. I noticed. I didn't say anything about it, and neither did she, but she caught my eye across the kitchen with an expression I didn't have a word for. Not pride exactly. Something more like relief, The kind that comes when you've been holding your breath for so long that you've forgotten what it felt like to breathe normally. By June, Derek had repaid just over 40% of the total. The rest will take time, and I have made my peace with that. What I haven't done is quietly absorb the difference on his behalf. Every dollar he repays is his. Every dollar he comes up short on is also his. That distinction matters in ways I'm still learning how to articulate. I visited my parents the first weekend of July. Saturday morning, my father was outside repairing the mailbox, finally, after years of it leaning to the left. Derek was there too, holding the post level while my father packed the base with quick-set concrete. They were arguing cheerfully about whether the angle was right, my father insisting on the level, Derek insisting he could eyeball it. I stood on the porch with my coffee and watched them. My father looked up and saw me watching and raised an eyebrow. "It's still crooked," I told him. "It's character," Derek said. My father looked at the post, then at Derek, then back at the post, and laughed. I have thought since then about what I would say if someone asked me whether I regret not stepping in, whether letting my father navigate a payment plan and letting Derek face the dealership and the debt and the slow work of paying it back, whether any of that was worth it. The honest answer is that I don't experience it as something I did to my brother. I experience it as the first time I stopped doing something for him that was hurting us both. There's a version of love that looks like catching someone every time they fall, and for a long time I confused that version with the real thing. I thought my job in this family was to be the floor, always there, always absorbing whatever came down. I wasn't the floor. I was just the person who'd never said no loudly enough for anyone to believe it. On the drive home from my parents that Sunday, I passed the Riverside Motors dealership on Henderson Road. The silver Chargers were still out front, lined up in the lot with their price stickers catching the afternoon light. I didn't slow down. I didn't feel anything particular about it except maybe the small, clean satisfaction of something that happened and cannot be unhappened. The kind of thing that changes the shape of a family so gradually you don't notice it until one morning the mailbox is straight and your father is laughing in the driveway and your brother is the one holding the post. Some repairs take longer than others. The ones worth making usually do. If you've ever been the person in your family who always absorbs the damage, the one who fixes it, covers it, quietly pays so everyone else can keep going, leave me a comment. I want to know if you found your line and what it cost you to hold it. Hit like if you believe that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face what they've done.